You're listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, another Monday. And I'm really tired from staying out and watching as much of that Cowboy game as I could. I'm not a young man anymore.
But they won.
Yeah, 20 seconds to go. I have Victoria here. No doubt she watched every play.
I was asleep.
Of course. I mean, even if it was a normal 7:15 game, making it to 10 o'clock would have been a pull. But now when it starts at 8:45 or something like that, it's like, yikes. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a young man anymore.
I cannot. My bedtime's 9. I struggle after that. My eyelids are so heavy.
Wait till you get 62. It's like, I made it past supper. Well, anyway, we're going to talk about a bond election, which my wife asked me about this morning. What do you think of this Johnson County bond election? I go, what are you talking about?
I know.
What?
There's hardly any information
I didn't, and I think I keep up pretty well with the news, local and national, and I hadn't even heard anything about it. And you're on the steering committee, right?
I was on the steering committee for I am on the steering committee for the for the Master Thoroughfare Plan. Mm-hmm. And then as a spinoff from that, kind of simultaneously, we've talked about this bond program, and a number of us continued on and weighed in addition to a number of public meetings. I mean, the county has done what they can. I think it's just hard to get information out. This is where those not having a local newspaper can be detrimental, because it's local, so it's not going to get picked up necessarily by a Star Telegram. But, they have a very sufficient website, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But how do you get it to people?
Right. Speaking of Star Telegram, I don't know why I subscribe to the Dallas Morning News, which is owned by the same people. And they do a Sunday print edition, and I got Star Telegram delivered instead, which, no big deal. But on the bottom of the front page, they said they're only going to be doing prints twice a week. Everything else is going to be on the website. And it's the Sunday paper is going to be delivered like Saturday night and stuff like that. So, so even going to be even less ability to get news. That's why people come to the neighborhood. Yeah,
that's why I wanted to talk about it today, so that we can access this, replay it, share it. That's what I'm hoping.
Well, let's talk about the sponsors a little bit, because they make all this possible. Get the news to you straight and unvarnished, fair and balanced. Sorry, I had to throw that in. Our place, of course. Did you bribe the kids yesterday at our place?
I didn't. I wasn't feeling too hot yesterday. I was exhausted. But
yes, well,
Philip was surprised. He looked at me. He's like, "We're not going to our place?"
And he's dancing and I have to go to church.
No, I was like, "You have to feed the children."
Yeah, it's funny, because it's like my dad was like, if you're too sick to go to Sunday school, you're too sick to play football this afternoon.
They went to catechism. We just didn't. We failed on the mass part.
Well, God will cut you some slack.
I hope so.
Also, Gina's, of course, you've been there many times.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
It is. I was there 10 days ago. It was one of the best shows I ever did. It was recently when we had all the nonprofits. Yeah, it's like
at Gina's. That was so cool.
That's one of my favorite times I've ever done this show. In the atmosphere, and I saw the people. They were all sharing pizzas together, and it was a good time.
Oliver likes to play the games.
Oh, yeah, they have this retro.
The retro games. Yeah, he and Philip were playing them, and now it's his thing.
You see, I remember when they weren't retro. That's how old I am. So, but anyway, go out there and get yourself either a little pizza or get yourself a breakfast, whatnot. Also, thank you to Wild Cigar. They got a big event coming up on the 25th. They've got a big national vendor coming in unveiling a new product, and they're choosing Wild Cigar as their unveiling point. So.
Well, they were at the BTX Brew Fest on Saturday, and they had a selection, and people were walking around, and I enjoy the smell of them, so I was like, gosh, that smells so good. I was tempted to go buy one, but...
Well, that'd be great. You have a picture of you there.
I don't want to be walking around with it myself, yes, but I did enjoy the smells and the selection. I was just impressed that they had this. They had a whole tent set up.
Oh yeah,
kudos to them.
Yeah, they did. I heard that Brewfest went really, really well.
It was fun.
It
was hot though.
I had the ladies on last Monday, and we were talking about the details of putting that thing together.
Can you imagine? Well, there's so much that goes into putting on an event like that.
Like our BOF breakfast coming up. You're going to be there for that?
Yes, sir. Thursday morning.
I have to get up early again. Why can't we do things in the middle of the day? I don't know, but whatever. That's just me.
It's checked off your list.
Yeah. And then I have a next step giving gala that night. So I'm going to be doing a double header for the public service.
Good.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. But thank you, Chris and Nathan, for all your, not just the quality service and whatnot, but also the civic activities you're a part of.
Yeah, thanks for coming out and supporting that. It was a great event.
I don't know if Wild is a sponsor of BOF, but I know Otto is. And so is the next guy, which is, John Williams at Old Pro, 817-734-2756. Old Pro is going to be one of the donors Thursday morning. And, it's not supposed to rain for a while, so get your roof checked. It's always like, I'll do it sometime, and then here comes the rain.
And then here comes the bad weather.
Yeah, right. And, of course, speaking of bad weather, our friends in North Carolina really need help. My parents, my in-laws, my wife's parents, I meant to say, caught the edge of it. They were about 100 miles away from Asheville. And my wife was there when it happened. They live in Kings Mountain, which is right on the Carolina borders. It's about 30 miles west of Charlotte, and they got one of the bands, I guess you call it, and it tore them up.
Oh, that's so
but they
heartbreaking.
survived.
Good.
But my wife was there to endure that, so it was not fun. So Old Pro Roofing, make sure your roof is good to go, because what John tells us at the B&I meetings, almost every meeting, is if you don't check it out and you have damage, and then you wait a while and then claim damage, the insurance companies will probably disallow
Deny it. Yeah.
Plus the deductible's now twice as high. So if you have like a typical house in Burleson, I think it's like $342,000, I think is the average price. You're talking about like $7,500, $8,000
Goodness.
before you even get the insurance on board. So call him at 817-734-2756. Another BOF sponsor is Jeff Kelly. So they all will step up to the plate as always. 817-781-0546. If you have a house to sell, you have a house to buy, call Jeff. He has some land as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
Hard to find land.
It is.
Snap it while you can.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And he's going to be on the show in about 10 days. And we're going to talk about, changing interest rates and whatnot. We're going to talk about, look at that spam telemarketer. That's the third one today. What do they want with me? Anyway, back to Jeff. Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com. But call him at 817-781-0546. If there's some real estate needs, he can help you out. We've got lots going on.
Yeah.
Which would you want to talk about first?
The bond?
Well, yeah, let's talk about the bond.
Okay.
Here's what you did to me. See, the last time I was here 2 months ago, you was talking about the road conditions, right? And now I notice them.
Right.
And I got kind of used to it, but Hidden Creek, that's tore up.
Hidden Creek is rough.
And it's a fairly new road, right? It's been in existence, about 15 years?
Something like that.
There's a patch of road I drive to DBU on Mountain Creek Parkway, and there's all these massive warehouses there, and those trucks are so torn up, that road, that it is like four-wheeling to get from 20 to DBU.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awful.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening, I think, in parts of the roads in Burleson. I'm sure y'all are hearing about it.
Well, I've talked about this a couple of times, how we were working on an asset management program, and that was presented to us last council meeting. So we have ratings on every street and roadway in our entire city of Burleson network, and we can see, which ones are failing, which ones are close to failing, which are still good. The streets that are in decent condition, we want to keep them there. So that's where we dedicate our O&M, the street maintenance budget to. Then there's some that are just going to have to be moved over into a capital improvement plan, and it's going to be a little bit. Streets like Renfro, it is terrible condition. Allsbury, but those need complete rebuilds. So this asset management program allows us to look at where is it wise to invest those annual budgeted operation maintenance dollars, like those patches, those filling the potholes, and where is it more, is it smarter? Is it more economical to just plan for a complete rebuild? Because it's not, if we're repairing it to keep it at an already failing rate, well, then what's the point? That's just monies that we're sinking.
Well, like I mentioned this morning, Robin says, hey, what about this Johnson County bond? And I had no idea what she's talking about. And
I know.
So will that bond, assuming it passes, which I have no idea, because, people are pretty allergic to bonds.
I know.
But if it passes, would it
when we're
benefit
talking
Burleson?
about transportation, right?
Right.
It wasn't an easy decision for our council to come to. We needed to raise our tax rate, but our streets, our roadways are in disrepair. They are so bad, and if we don't, we're already in the negative, and if we don't start putting money into them, it's only going to get worse. And then, like I said, we have to wait until there's capital money available to completely rebuild, and so that's years out. So we need to invest in our roadways. And even with the increase of an additional, I think it's like $1.6 million to that operating maintenance portion, and we're dedicating all of that. The tax rate increase, the money that it will bring in is completely dedicated towards street maintenance. And
Did you get a lot of static?
We got a lot of questions, and I appreciate that. The dialogue is important. Like, where is this money going? And I think if citizens, we have to be transparent. We have to show where the money's going. We have to, residents have to see dirt moving. They have to see, where is my street on this? You know, I drive this particular route every day, and it's not being addressed. So I think the continuous communication about what roads we're working on, what roads are in the coming months and year, and being so forthcoming about that information, because if we're not telling them, then they don't know. And if they don't see dirt moving, then it appears like we're just sitting on this, and we're not. There are a lot of projects in motion. Some of these that particularly that are rebuilds, well, that takes design, and sometimes it takes it might take additional right of way because we need to redirect it or configure how it goes around something. You know, if it involves utilities, there's so many pieces to some of these projects that you may not see, but they are still in motion. And so also in the last city council meeting, which I strongly encourage people to go back and view, we had an update on all of the projects that are currently in motion in our town. What is being repaired? What is being rebuilt? Where do projects stand? What is their timeline? What's the finality? What are we looking at? So those are two really good presentations from our last council meeting that I encourage people to go look at, the asset management and that project update. But the county has never had a master thoroughfare plan, which essentially all of us local bodies of government are just doing our own thing. We're not communicating across Burleson to Joshua or Joshua to the county. And, you know, we have so many roadways. 731 is a very good example. It's a TxDOT roadway, but there's elements of it that the city, you know, is responsible for. Or you look at 714, the road where Russell Farm sits, it's the continuation of Dobson. That's city, county, and it crosses a railroad. So there are so many elements where we needed to be more on the same page as a whole county. So I really commend Judge Bedecker for pursuing a master thoroughfare plan. And so he brought together community leaders, elected officials, business leaders, landowners, and it was a pretty large committee that helped form, and we're still, I mean, it's going to be a continuous work in progress of having a master thoroughfare plan so that we're all speaking from the same documents and we know what one level is doing so that we aren't duplicating resources, so that we're maximizing resources. We're all responsible for using tax dollars to the best of our ability and being efficient and being effective with those dollars. And if we're not communicating, well, then we're not helping ensure that we're being responsible with those dollars. So working from a document that says, hey, look, Godly, this is what how their growth is looking, and these are the roadways that they're going to need eventually. You know, what's county's responsibility? What's TxDOT's responsibility? What's the city of Burleson's responsibility or the city of Joshua's responsibility? And then it evolved into a steering committee for a bond package. So a lot of us were tapped. And I sit for Burleson. I am a representative on that steering committee. Dan McClendon is a representative, as well as Alex Phillips, because he knows economic development, not just in Burleson, but countywide.
He's watching right now.
He's really in tune to what's going on. He pays attention and has regular meetings with economic development directors all throughout our county. So it helps to have conversations that have more than just one person sitting at the table from one particular area. So this bond package is, I mean, tons of, basically we looked at these maps and we put stickers on traffic congestion areas, high volume roadways. Where do we have train crossing? You know, before we came online, you and I were talking about some of these railroad crossings that hold up.
Right. Like today.
Yeah. I had to come around. Yeah. Thank you for the text message to tell me, by the way, Main Street's blocked because this train has been sitting here.
I was talking to both of y'all before the show that there was a Wall Street Journal article about how Texans spend vastly more amounts of time at railroad crossings than any other state in the union. I mean, it's like no one is even close. Our average stay is like every time a train goes through is like 7 minutes. And you think, well, 7 minutes, that's not a big deal. It's a big deal. You know, and it cuts your town in half. And you know, you can't. I just always wonder what's going to happen if you had an emergency.
Yep.
Here in Crowley, in particular, I mean, because there's only one way to get around a train that's stopped like it was today. That's that new Caris development. What if you had a fire over, God forbid, one of these houses over here? How would they get here?
How did they get there?
You know, that's another problem for another day. But as far as website,
So I
Taylor's
wanted
put it
to
up.
point out, thank you, Taylor, for pulling this up. There is a very helpful website. It's JohnsonCountyBond.com. I mean, it's very simple, and it has a plethora of information, talks about our growth, talks about what we're expecting. But at the bottom, it said projects, and you can individually look at the projects that are being considered. So again, this is from a county perspective. So they brought in individuals, like I said, from the business community, developers, elected leaders. And I mean, the first and foremost, since it's county-wide, we had to look at a little bit. The idea was to look at a little bit from every single precinct. So while we threw out all of these ideas for projects, then it had to be narrowed down. And the commissioner's court determined, a dollar amount that they felt comfortable. This is our first bond package in the history of Johnson County.
I've lived here for 32, 33 years. I don't remember one.
Right. Yeah.
I never voted. It's always, school or local bonds.
Right. This is our first countywide transportation bond program. We have like exceptional bond ratings because we've never gone out for a bond. The county is very conservative with the dollars, but it also means that there's a backlog on projects that need to be completed. So ultimately, the idea behind a bond program is that we are putting local dollars in to attract TxDOT and COG funding. So,
which you're also a part of. Well, you're just everywhere, aren't you? But is there a relationship between the council governments and this bond? Or
absolutely. Lots of conversations were had between, like I said, we threw out all the ideas for projects and then met with the TxDOT district director, and we met with the COG transportation director, Michael Morris, and said, of these projects, this one is looking at safety. This one is looking at grade railroad crossings. We had kind of columns and said, what are the most viable projects that can bring some additional funds that are attractive to the TxDOT? Because inevitably, every single year, there are a list of projects that TxDOT intends to accomplish. And then some of these quotes come back and there's a $30 million gap. Well, that's not just going to occur overnight. So they say, well, let's redirect these funds to a project somewhere in the state that is shovel ready. Essentially, the right-of-way has been purchased. The engineering's complete. The design is ready to go. We are ready to move dirt. And they're looking statewide. And how do we get our projects to become attractive to those dollars that get freed up? Parker County set a wonderful example of this. And if you drive over to the Weatherford area, I-20, they are moving and shaking. They passed I think they're on their third bond package now. So they started with something that was palatable. And then the idea is that you show citizens, look, you put some skin in the game and we put those dollars to work. But not only did we put them to work locally, we became attractive to larger state and federal funds that then made these projects accomplished.
Right.
So we looked as a bond committee, we looked at projects that have kind of been sitting out waiting, but could benefit the most and look the most, be the most, I guess, competitive for those state or federal dollars. And we really picked on-system projects, which when we talk on-system, those are TxDOT primarily maintain. TxDOT has an entire state, and we hear over and over and over that TxDOT is underfunded. So they only have so much money that can go statewide.
Right.
How do we as Johnson County say, our projects are really important and look how much we've pushed them along? Well, we dedicate local dollars to them.
Well, need and which is deserving and which is, it has nothing to do with it. Sounds like, it sounds like if it doesn't matter how badly it's needed, if you're not prepared, the money goes somewhere else.
If your project doesn't have the right-of-way purchased, if your project doesn't have the engineering and design complete, well, then TxDOT says, that's cute. We'll get to it at some time. East Renfro is a prime example of this. and it is one of the county portion of the East Renfro expansion is one of the projects that we listed as part of this bond package.
Well,
so we had to pick a little bit from every single precinct, which is just different. It's going to take a different mindset because this is county-wide. This isn't City of Burleson roadways. This isn't City of Alvarado roadways. These are TxDOT out in the county roadways. But if we get this portion of the ball rolling, well, then can Burleson finish the portion that's in our city limits? We're just trying to look the most competitive that we can, and it's putting some skin in the game.
I've talked with the mayor before on their show about expansion of Renfro to 4 lanes. Is that just a part of this package?
So the portion that TxDOT is responsible for. So when you're driving and you go right, I think to 528.
Right.
After that, you see a sign that says, in 1,000 feet, it is no longer, city maintained. That's when it rolls over to TxDOT.
That's on 714
I'm sorry, that's when it rolls over to county. And so that portion is what's on this bond.
Yeah, 714 has that too. I think, and I don't think that's by accident. I think they'll put up to say, hey, don't blame us for the potholes.
Don't blame us.
Yeah.
But so we want... the TxDOT and city portion, well, there are funds. The design is in the works and has been for a while. I believe they're still working on right-of-way. So we've got one portion of that road that's moving, but the other portion, the county portion, isn't. So we put that as an example in this bond program so that the entirety of the roadway could potentially be completed.
Will this bond address the issues we talked about earlier with the Hidden Creek?
No.
Halsbury.
Like I said, it's not going to be city limit projects because those we're relying on the cities to have their plans, their capital improvement plans, just like Burleson. This is going to be projects that are greater, that affect, that link one community to another. Hewlin is another example of a project that we put on this list because there are no funds right now to look at that overpass, the railroad overpass.
Right.
There's not any funds there at all, not for design, not to even look at a study. So this bond program, that's one of the projects that we listed in this bond program.
How large is this bond?
Oh, that's a very good question. I want to say it's 60 million.
Million? Okay, I thought it was going to be bigger than that, actually.
Well, but it's our first.
I already thought it'd be like, 250 million, something like that.
I think that's what Parker just passed.
Yeah, I was thinking it's going to be.
But that's their third bond package.
Yeah.
So you have to get buy-in from citizens. This is a big package when it's our very first package ever.
Oh.
And we have to start somewhere. If we show, a couple projects in Precinct 2, a couple projects in Precinct 3, and there's actually movement and it leverages more funds from the state and federal level, and we're able to accomplish them, well, then potentially in a few more years, we could look at a bigger package that involves not just on-system roadways, but off-system roadways. Maybe then it would include something like a Hidden Creek. But you have to show residents, you have to show citizens what they're getting for their dollars.
Well, back to Hidden Creek and Burleson's portion of it, is it possible we may have to pass a bond as a city? Has that even been discussed?
Well, we need to complete the bond package that we're currently in.
Okay.
There's too much lingering out there that needs to be completed. Citizens, the same, that you've heard me rant about that bond package. We didn't do our research. This particular bond package with the county has been thoroughly vetted multiple times. We had conversations with TxDOT. We had conversations with the COG. The county commissioners looked at this bond program, gave the finality, said, what number they were comfortable with putting out to voters. And then now it's in the voters' hands come November, whether or not they approve it. But we didn't do that much legwork on the cities. And so there's, for example, the Hewlin expansion project. It's $11.5 million short of what we needed. So because we didn't thoroughly vet, we didn't include utility relocation in that estimate. It was just pouring the road, essentially, designing and putting a road in. But we didn't factor in some other pieces that are imperative to actually building the road.
Right.
So
Well, also, I have the mayor on next Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he's in favor of this bond.
He has, I'll let him speak for himself.
Me too.
But
I
he
put words in
has
his mouth, but
been a part of these conversations
Right.
all the way.
I'll let him speak for himself. I shouldn't have put words in his mouth.
No, but he has been a part of the conversations all the way. And I think it's just important to hear it from multiples of us. And I've said to the staff at the county, it's going to take sitting next to your neighbor and going, hey, did you know there's a bond program on this ballot coming? Because what does everyone do? They go check for, the president, the governor, those big levels that stand out to all of us. But there's more on the ballot. Turning the ballot over and going, oh, there's something to read.
Plus, there's all those smaller races, and in this county, majority of them will be unopposed.
Right. A lot will.
So
and so
they'll
some
say,
of those,
what's the bother?
What's
right?
the point of going down ballot? But this is a really important thing for our county. We have we're about 30 years behind where we need to be in transportation. And we know something like 400,000 more people are moving to Johnson County. How are we going to move traffic? They're not just moving within the city limits of Burleson. They're going through the county roads and going into Godley. They're going into Joshua. They're going into Keene. And we have to work together. We have to have this document that helps us all communicate our plans. Hey, Alex, but we also, we need to take advantage of opportunities to leverage our local dollars. So I listened on Wednesday. I went to a Tarrant Regional Transportation Committee meeting, and the TxDOT district engineer spoke, and he said, here's where our Fort Worth district is lacking. We are not competitive enough with those discretionary dollars from TxDOT commissioners. There's several different buckets that they assign funds for. There's bridge money, there's railroad crossing money, but then there's discretionary money. And the commissioners get to decide, and we as a Fort Worth area district haven't been competitive for those dollars because we don't have our projects ready to go. We don't have a good argument for, hey, send us some TxDOT money because we are willing to match it with this money. And how we get there is by doing programs like a bond to say, look, we are now dedicating this much money for this particular project. TxDOT, could you chip in this much? COG, can you chip in this much from the federal level?
It's interesting, though, because there's a similar situation 20 years ago about the back of the ballot issue where Hill College was trying to get Burleson into the tax zone, or whatever you call it, the school zone. And it failed because a lot of people in that election just voted straight ticket, mostly Republican, and they didn't bother turning the ballot over. This was the Bush-Kerry election.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how long ago it was. And so my students, some of which walk to the early college building that I teach in now for Hill, pay more than kids driving in from Joshua and Alvarado.
Yep.
And so that's the value of reading the ballot. Alex says Johnson County is 5th fastest growing county of DFW over the last 2 years. Only one I could think of maybe faster than ours, maybe Collin County with Frisco and all that business. But if we're the 5th fastest, those other 4 must be blowing up, right?
I mean, we are growing exponentially fast. And I spoke up at that transportation meeting and said, hey, look, the west side of our Metroplex, it's coming at us full speed ahead, and we have to adequately plan. But our local dollars can only take us so far. How do we become competitive for those bigger grant opportunities? And it's just saying, look, we're taking this seriously, and that's what a bond program is going to show, that we have buy-in. Locally, we acknowledge we have an issue, and so if we put up this much, how much can TxDOT put to the table? How much more can we leverage? And that's really what this been. So the Commissioner's Court was smart, I believe, in selecting a dollar amount that I hope is palatable to voters, but also shows we're taking these things seriously.
Well, it's interesting because the expense of building is going to get a lot higher
all the time.
And particularly with all the business happening in North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, rebuilding those communities, rebuilding all those roads is going to cause the price of raw materials to go up.
It will.
This is what happens in some major hurricanes. This happened, when Florida gets hit and they have to rebuild all of it. Like Alex says, we're faster than Collin and Denton County. Big growth in the counties to the west and the east of the DFW Metro. Probably like Kaufman County.
Kaufman. That's exactly what I was going to say. I couldn't think of what it
Kaufman
was called.
County.
Kaufman County.
Parker County probably. But anyway, the point is that what's going on over there affects us over here, and your the longer we stall on, putting the money into it, the more expensive it's going to get.
Absolutely.
It's already gotten more expensive. Plus, the fact is, depending on the election in a month, if we have a system of tariffs put into place, a lot of raw materials come in from out of the country. And I'm not in favor of tariffs at all. And because it's going to cause construction prices of all kinds to go up.
Skyrocket.
Yeah, and so we're looking at, some of these other factors that you don't really think about. You just think, it's a bond, it's X percent interest, it's X amount of dollars, yes or no, and it's more than that. Johnson County growth is 9% over the last 2 years. I'm going to guess Alex is in favor of this bond passing. I'm
Well,
just
I
going
told
to guess.
you he sat with us on the planning committee as well. And, I just think it's something that we really need to research and understand. That website is chock full of information, johnsoncountybond.com.
I'm just
You
surprised.
can click on the individual projects. It tells you about how much we're estimating from this package would get dedicated to one over another. Again, it's a little bit, I got some questions about that. It looks specifically like there are 2 projects listed for Precinct 2, and that would be the Hewlin Railroad at grade crossing. That's one area that we absolutely need to we have to start figuring out what we're going to do about it. And there isn't any money as of now to dedicate it toward it. And this would help.
Just providing information to help the discussion and support you guys. Thank you, Alex.
Appreciate it. I told you he's a wealth of knowledge.
He's impenetrable to get his idea, his opinion.
Everybody hits him up because he knows so much of what's going on. He has a very good pulse, not just in Burleson, Johnson County, the state. And that's also what keeps us competitive on an economic development recruitment.
And we'll probably see him Thursday morning, I'll bet.
Yeah, at the BOF breakfast.
Yeah, right.
I hope so.
And also, we're talking about the fact that even if people think they're informed, I'm just now learning about this.
I know.
And we really do need to get the word out, because people who have no idea are going to turn it over and say, bond.
What does that mean?
Bond means...
What does that entail? Well, go look at this website. It lists all the projects countywide, a little bit from each precinct. You can click on individually. There's portions of this county that really need to be addressed, and it's just been on the back burner. We're about 30 years as a county behind where we should be in transportation dollars.
I could think of another road that needs a lot of work or expansion. It's 917. When you go from, up Eastern Road and you turn right on 917 and then head towards the highway, it's always backed up.
Well, that is currently being expanded.
Okay. 917
is. And so this bond package does not touch that because there are already funds on it. Okay. The bridge and lights at 917, because right now that little bridge cannot handle the amount of traffic that goes across it.
No, it's always...
And that impacts Burleson, that impacts Keene and Joshua and Alvarado. So it's a big deal, and we finally have some TxDOT attention to that. That is actually in motion.
Okay, well, that's good. Let's talk about some Burleson-related things. As far as the tax increase and all that, it's going to take more money than that.
Oh, significant.
To do whatever we need to do here in this town.
I suspect, you brought up bonds.
Yeah, right.
At some time in the future, we will have to have a transportation-specific dedicated bond package that we rake over for about a year or 2, year and a half, something to fully look at. What will these projects take? What do we absolutely need? And
there's another aspect of it, too.
It's imperative that we get some of these roads completely either rebuilt, redesigned.
There's another thing I would point out, that if, let's say, people say, well, we need to cut this or cut that, when your town starts looking shabby in the parks, for example, or we're not maintaining the roads, or we're not cutting the grass in the median, just stuff like that, it says something about the town. And a lot of people who don't live here, if they're passing through and they see weeds in the park and things of that nature, it says something about the town. So just to maintain what we have.
Litter abatement.
Yeah, right.
It cost, we had to, we shifted that off of the general fund this budget, and it's $1 on the trash bill. But when you put out your trash, that's when we see an increase of things blowing down the neighborhoods, falling out of trash bags, dogs getting into them.
I was thinking about that.
And so litter and trash days kind of go hand in hand, and it wasn't an easy decision to say $1 has to go specifically for litter abatement. But at the same time, do you want our city to not be attractive when you're driving down and you see junk and stuff thrown out everywhere?
Well, you look at public budgets of any kind, school budgets, city budgets, and whatnot, and you think it's run like the national budget, which is a disgrace, right? You know,
Well,
so,
they just print money, and that's
right.
not what we get to do locally.
Or
it's
they
not what we should be doing.
Well, they see the tremendous amount of waste in national
Waste.
products, and they think, well, there must be waste down at City Hall. Or they read about something like Chicago, you know, which is another terribly run city, that they think that's endemic to all the cities. That's
Right.
the way budgets are. And I could, after being here on this show for 5 years and talking to all you guys, it's a pretty lean budget.
It's lean.
Yeah, and you know, it also means keeping and attracting quality personnel.
Oh, that's important.
You know, because people complain about government service sometimes because they didn't get good help. We want Burleson people to get good help, right?
Right now, we don't have a we don't have a director of capital projects, and we don't have. We're missing some engineers. I mean, there's some gaps, and when there's gaps, unfortunately, you know, that you have to expect a transfer of information. There's time to build people up when they do get into those positions. Fortunately, we've pretty much kept on track, but inevitably that stuff will get you.
And there's probably a lot of competition between cities for
So
quality
much.
personnel.
Well, and then private firms come nab them. You know, we've had a number of engineers go to private firms because the work-life balance is better. The pay is sometimes better, or at least competitive. But when you work in government, it is, and you actually do your job, you don't really get to turn off. It's hard to, because there's always something going on, in particular at the local level. I can't speak highly enough about the phenomenal staff that we have. They're responsive. When something needs to be fixed, it's addressed. As long as you let us know. We have this 311 app, and it has some kinks, and it will continuously be a work in progress. But you know, reporting things like that high grass, or hey, this needs restriping, or this pothole, I just had a tire blowout because I hit it. You know, we have to hear from citizens. It takes all of us to continuously improve our town. And we're living here, we're enjoying the resources and the services that we have, but in order to keep it up, it takes everyone's input, everyone's continuous buy-in, and everyone's support.
I want to throw in something else as well. I was in McKinney last week. You ever go to downtown McKinney?
I love McKinney.
Yeah, and
It's just pretty.
It's pretty well. See, and when I was a kid in Plano, McKinney was a dump.
Yep.
All right, you didn't go there unless you were going to jail, and that's or your driver's license. And now there's several block.
They have a
beautiful downtown,
thriving little town, old town kind of space, and that's what we have. And we want it.
Alex says we're all a part of the team.
know.
Go Burleson!
He is Mr. Burleson.
Yeah. But one thing I noticed is that they have a very nice little boutique hotel there.
Oh.
You know, it's the Grand, I think it's called, and it's about 5 stories, and they have a nice restaurant, and I think it's part a wine bar. Also, I think leaks a space from it. And I thought, why don't we have something like that? You know, we when we talk about motel money and all this other stuff, we're talking about the ones on the highway, which I've never been in them. I don't know if I want to be in them. I don't know if they're any good or not. But, because you hear stories, but they may just be talk. But have we thought about maybe, I don't know, Alex can answer this too. Would it be interesting to have like a boutique hotel in Old
I
Town?
feel like, and Alex probably knows better than me, but I feel like years ago, maybe even when I was staff, we talked about a boutique hotel in Old Town. I don't know where that would fit. And I think you have to think about transportation. I don't know all the ins and outs about how you attract those types of projects. We are in conversations about this, continuous conversations about a hotel conference center. Now that would be a different thing than from what you're suggesting.
Well, I'm thinking with all these
I
other
think it would be
needs,
smart.
This conference would be great. We've been talking about that for years, but it's also we got the roads, right? And we have the police station
and
to
if
finish
somebody's
and blah,
staying
blah.
in Old Town for their kid, they came in town for the kids' baseball tournament, or maybe they're in town because their daughter's going to dance in something, and while they're here, they walk down and eat at a restaurant in Old Town and listen to a band at Heim or the Old Town Brewery. Oh, there's things to do now. That golf simulators moving along that's next door to City Market, and that's what we're really trying to make Old Town attractive, and maybe in the future some little boutique hotel is a fit for that. It
was
takes an
thinking-
investor. It takes somebody.
Yeah, somebody else's money.
Somebody else's money, and it takes the idea behind that. But
Well, how about that space that is still open on
Maybe.
Riffraw? You know, we talked about that space before, where the old Methodist church was.
I think the downside is that the site is so small. I don't know, how big something needs to be, but it's only like 1.4 acres.
Well, this hotel does not occupy a lot of space in McKinney.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 1.4
Cleburne
acres.
has a little
Yes.
boutique in
Right.
in their old town. I don't know how well, but it is so well done.
Mm-hmm.
It is so pretty, and that took a local family. I think the Dudley family.
Just not big enough yet for our downtown area yet. McKinney has a bigger draw than we do right now. We have talked to some, and that's the feedback.
Yeah. Okay. So we need to
Well,
grow our old town a little bit more.
Well, McKinney does draw a bunch because you get Frisco, Prosper,
Sure.
and all these little towns were nothing when I was living in Plano, and they're like literally the pre-growth godly size, and now they're gigantic. And all that.
Well, and we're fortunate that we do recognize we have a treasure. Old Town is a treasure. There are towns that wish they had that type of draw, something to build off of, and I think we are building off of it wisely. We really need to focus, and we are bringing, the Old Town District does actually go to 35. So we have to continue drawing that growth over the railroad tracks. A big piece of that will be some type of pedestrian crossing that'll cost money. And so we have to focus on that piece, and I think we are. And what do we do that extends, when you say Old Town, so many people think it's the plaza, it's to Babes and the railroad tracks, but it actually goes across that. We have Accents, we have Rebecca's Boutique, we have other
Right.
things on this side. How do we continue that link? And then potentials. We need to have more tourism events.
Right.
We're getting there, but it all takes money.
Well, speaking-
an example of that is the BTX Brew Fest.
Right, I was thinking that too.
And
Farmers Market every Saturday.
Farmers Market. We have to have those we have to become a place where people come and spend their time. And then when they're spending time, they want to spend the night because there's more to do and they need a place to stay, but they want a place that stays and it's nice and it's connected.
Right. I'm not an expert in this. I'm sure Alex has done his best to sell them, but I would really think that you put a boutique hotel near the Old Town area. There's a space near Babes that's been open forever. Behind
That's fair.
behind the lumber yard. Something like that.
Yep.
Again, somebody else's money, but I just think we do a really good job in the last couple of years of promoting
Agree.
This town and doing a lot of community events. Tomorrow we have Tiffany Griffin on at 10 o'clock, by the way, earlier. So because she's got a pub crawl for Halloween, and
I saw that. That's fun.
right, and then we've besides the farmers market, and they're going to be like a December farmers market for Christmas. We have these things going on, but every month. I think
We have something, and that's what it's going to take, those tourism draws to bring people to Burleson. This Saturday, and I'm sure she'll touch on this, the Harvest Moon Lantern Festival. These lantern festivals, I didn't realize, I don't know where one was this last weekend, but I had several friends that were there, and they were like raising and lighting up. I think that's so pretty. And, these events take a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of brainstorming and organization. And so I think they're coming along. We're going to get there.
Speaking of which, I'm going to segue just a bit. I had Brooke and Melissa Mathis on last week, and Melissa got a very serious diagnosis. And I just want to say, we're all thinking about you, Melissa. It's a very serious, it's cancer, and she's going to begin treatments. And she announced this on Facebook. She told me the day before, so I didn't say anything then, but she put it on Facebook what they're doing. And Melissa, we're thinking about you because that's serious. Everybody in our lives everybody we know somebody that has this.
Been touched by cancer.
Yeah, that's right. And so
she's got a village behind her. I hugged her really tight on Saturday at the festival, and she's got support, and I hope she hears that.
I hope she does too. I don't know how often she hears the show, but maybe somebody will tell her that
Someone
she
will
got
tell
a shout
her.
out. I hope
But
so.
those ladies worked their tails off for a very successful event, and proud of people who are willing to put in that effort in our town.
Really, and you don't. I've said this to many times, and many people. Not many towns have what we have here.
I know.
People that are willing to put in for the civic good, so to speak, and also the nonprofits and all.
Yes.
All
Lisa Bolton House was out there. I mean, they're so smart. They have these partnerships with nonprofits.
Right.
They gain additional volunteers. The nonprofits benefit. It's word of mouth. It's publicity. There's so much, but it takes a lot of effort. Tiffany Griffin has put on some phenomenal events. We previously had a wine crawl that was pretty successful. And so it's making our community attractive to people who want to spend time here, spend money here, spend resources here.
And I think the city does a good job of supporting them too, because it takes the city to, help coordinate security and whatnot.
Police were out there, fire were out there. I just can't commit. Public Works and shutting things down and making sure traffic's flowing and things are adequately blocked off so that pedestrian traffic is safe. I enjoyed it. We stopped in a couple of different businesses because it was toasty, and so I'd take an AC break, and we had a snack here or a drink here, and that was the latest I have been out in a really long time. So that's why I wasn't very good about going to Mass yesterday. My husband teased me. He's like, did you? I'm like, that was super late. I did not get the rest that I needed, but it was a blast.
Numerous restaurants in Old Town Saturday had record sales. Well, how
I believe
about
it.
that? Well,
I contributed.
Well, I would bet that we'll have this again next year. But it just...
and I think that the coolest thing is we, as a community, take this. I hope the restaurants from here and the team of ladies that put on the festival and Alex's team, how do we grow it from here? How do we build on that success that they had? That there were bands also playing in some of the restaurants simultaneously. How do we help each other out? How do we benefit each other and work together? There's every time we can grow, we can expand, we can make improvements. And so I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes from here.
Yeah.
And that's just one example. Like you said, we had the date night farmers markets that are a hit. And that's continuously evolved because of that feedback, because of those continuous partnerships. Chaz really seeks out and has a network of vendors and people that want to do things in our town. And that
he's opened up one
volume.
here.
I know.
Yeah. Speaking of, you're talking about how we developed Old Town. Crowley's trying to do that here on Main Street. And it's going to take a while, but Otto's got something coming up here.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, about about a mile from here. A kind of a miniature hour place of sorts. And
Moon Tower came over here.
Yes.
Well,
Christmas festivities will be bigger this year as well.
I love what we do at Christmas.
Well, you got the little kids, right?
I have kids, but not just that. It's the whole spirit. Our town, the giving attitudes, our enormous Toys for Tots event that we do with the Marines,
they'll be on the
Marine
show
Corps
in a
League.
month. Yeah, it starts early November.
The tree
by the
lighting
way.
and the drone show, and Alex's team is continuously coming up with new ideas for photo ops in Old Town. Those light up my heart. I love to see people wandering around and taking pictures, and that's family time. That's just, it's the best. It's the spirit of the entire holiday.
And that Toys for Tots, Jack Matson's going to be on the show early. Or it'll be right after the election, not because of that, but because it's when it starts in November and goes until like late November, and so they have time to coordinate who gets the toys and all that other stuff. So Jack and I would bet Mike Purdue will also be on with him.
I bet. Yeah. Mike Spans, who I saw at the end of Saturday night, I was like, oh, they are playing too. I just got to do all kinds of fun things Saturday. I need to hang out more. I just am old and I can't handle it.
Well,
can't hang like I used to.
Yeah, not like I used to. Yeah.
But you touched on tourism, and that's, the hotel motel funds, that the concept behind that is to bring tourism to your community. There's an element of some of that money we spend on those grants where we give like to BTX applies or Tiffany applies for some of her events. The Center for ASD is putting on something new this coming year. And so they apply for a portion of those grants, but another portion goes to things like our adding Christmas photo op opportunities. Or I know last year I was kind of, I ruffled feathers about speaking about an ice skating rink, but those are things when you spend tourism dollars to bring more tourism to your community, well, then it builds up that fund and we bring more and more things. And it doesn't have to be an ice skating rink, but just how do we make it a destination? And that's not using property tax funds. That's that pool of money that is designed to increase tourism dollars in your community. You know, having events like the BTX Brewfest where restaurants in Old Town saw record sales and hopefully other businesses saw that too. It's benefits everyone.
Yeah. It's just amazing, you know. Of course, we going on and on about these other events we have going on. I feel fortunate to live in a town like that. I feel fortunate to have a city council now that I think looks to promote these things as opposed to, you know, rock the boat or whatever else that's happened in the past.
Well, we have an awesome council, a supportive council, and I think we all care. We're all in these roles because we wanted to bring something to the table, and I think we all do. It's a good council. We're working together very well. This budget year was tough, and I think that even more so showed what we were willing, you know, how we had tough conversations. We had thorough debates and discussions like we should. And we ultimately, you know, we're all on the same page, had an understanding of what needed to be done. Now we are dedicated to seeing those things be done. So, you know, there's a lot to do, but that's okay. That's an exciting thing because we're a growing community. We're a community where people want to live and shop and play. And those are good things. If we had a community where people didn't want to spend their time, well, then we'd be looking at a whole different situation.
And it wasn't so much like 30 years ago they didn't want to, but they had nothing to stay for.
Right.
They went to Fort Worth for everything. Yeah. One last thing before I let you go. How was Italy?
Oh, it was fun.
Yeah, I saw some of your pictures.
I turned 40 very soon, so that was my husband and I talked about this for like 2 years to get away, and I picked Italy. And they were so welcoming, such a beautiful country. We got to see a number of sites, but there's even more still to be explored, hopefully sometime in the future. But
I was reading about how Italy was really becoming a very, very popular tourist place. And some of the locals are complaining about that.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, but as far as Italy being a destination place, it's really seemed to have gotten more popular the last 3 or 4 years.
So you know what's crazy? On our tour of the Colosseum, we learned that the Colosseum didn't actually become like a destination where people like formal tours until 98.
Really?
Yeah. Before then, it was just bombarded. Like people were living in it and you didn't actually explore it because there were lots of bad things going on in it. Like you avoided it, the whole area. And in 98, you know, a private company came in and decided, oh, there's something to see here. And then a couple years later, the Gladiator movie really blew it out of the water as far as the numbers of people that wanted to come in and see it.
Really? I always thought that was like on the tourist to-do list.
You would think. 98.
Other Italian sites like the Eiffel Tower are big beyond. Oh, I get my countries mixed up.
The Roman ruins.
Yeah, Roman ruins.
What was funny is we only booked 2 advanced tours, the Colosseum and the Vatican. And then everything else we kind of booked while we were there. But of course, I'm Catholic, so I went into so many churches.
Did you wear the head covering and all that?
I didn't, but I did a lot of praying. And I went to confession in the Sistine Chapel.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
There was a priest standing there. I was like, do you do confessions? And he was kind of like, if you want to. I was like, I do. When am I ever going to do that in the Sistine Chapel and go into St. Peter's Basilica and go to Mass? It was so moving and so phenomenal. All this history. And I'm, of course, a history geek in general. And so when I go to D.C., I eat up our history. And we're like, oh, this building's 200 years old. But this building in Italy is
thousands.
Yeah. You know, you're talking about before Christ and after Christ. It was phenomenal.
I would probably want to go to Italy if I had to choose again. Of course, I've been to Scotland several times. Well, not several, but it's been a long time. Britain as a whole, about 4 times, and I got partial to that. But anyway, I'm glad you had a good time.
It was fun. I'm glad we got away. Philip and I had never taken a trip like that before, and it was awesome.
I was thinking about taking Robin on vacation to Waxahachie, but that's okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, so
poor Robin.
A lot of people say that actually, but But I'll let you finish off. Thank you, Taylor. Finish off with what we need to know about that bond.
Go check out the website, really do your homework, understand the projects that they're looking at. If you have questions, reach out to me, reach out to the mayor, Dan McClendon, Alex Phillips, Judge Bedecker. He's really spearheaded this idea that we need to be on the same page. We need to be working together. How do we leverage local dollars to make bigger impacts, be more competitive for those state and federal dollars? And I think that this is a good step in that direction. Of course, it's up to the voters. Come November, turn over the ballot. Don't just vote for the first 3 positions. There's a lot more. In addition, on this ballot will be the liquor election for Burleson.
I was going to bring that up, but we're running kind of short on time.
There's a lot of things. Just pay attention and do your homework, and we'll go from there.
So you're going to give us any recommendations who to vote for?
No, sir.
Doggone it. I didn't know. You won't even. No, I don't talk politics like that with y'all. I'll do the ranting and raving. I have concerns on both sides, so like everybody else does.
Like everybody else.
Yeah, so.
But definitely consider that bond package.
Well, tomorrow we'll talk more along these lines with Tiffany, and like I mentioned to the mayor on next Monday. I don't know who I have it next Tuesday. I don't. It's been a while since I looked at the calendar here. Jeff Kelly, that's what I thought. I knew Jeff was coming in about 10 days or so. It's actually 8 days.
Something that Alexa brought to our attention, because this is the first year we have like a more robust legislative agenda as a council, and we're going to be more proactive about things that are going to impact municipal government as a whole, positive and negative. And a piece of that, she's brought up insurance and how that is affecting home affordability.
Yes, it does.
So, man, if it's not one thing, it's another. Interest rates, insurance, this, that.
I'm afraid our legislature's too interested in school vouchers to worry about that.
They need to be focused on what local control, local government. We are answering directly to the people. And they like to whitewash us and say, everyone's the same. We are very different from Dallas. We are very different from Houston. You can't paint us all with the same brush.
Well, I think they read the Austin Statesman and see some crazy thing that's been proposed by the Austin City Council.
And then they decide we can't do it at all.
And Burleson, Austin, very close, similar, very politically the same. You kidding me?
Yeah, they need to focus on transportation dollars as a state. They need to focus on education. They've got a lot of things that they could be working on.
Well, I'd like to have you on again before Thanksgiving. I know that as it gets closer to Thanksgiving, as a mother, you get busier.
Yeah. October and November for school, for dance, for community. We have all the things, and I really want to commend our city staff again, because we've been rocking and rolling on some cool events. Fall Fest at the farm, dogs and donuts, and there's more to come. Now we're getting into the Christmas season, and we'll have Christmas on the farm and the tree lighting and the parade. Many thanks to Rotary and all the city staff that helped put that together, all the participants. Lots of fun stuff coming up.
A lot to absorb here.
I'm sorry. I come out and I've got all kinds of information.
I know you do. I know. It's what we need. That's why when I say have Victoria on, it's like, okay.
You can just sit back
and let her roll, because she's got all the notes and prepared and ready
Next
to roll.
Next time, we're going to work on my own logo. Here she is.
Whatever. Thank you, Taylor. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Appreciate you, Taylor. Thank you, Mr. Allard. Appreciate you.
No problem.